And we are recording with the one and only Dr. Peter McCullough back for a popular, I wouldn't even say it's popular wanting, I'd say it's more of like a mutiny against me. It's worth Dr. McCullough. I'm like, he's a busy guy. They're like, get him on. And I'm like, no, no respect, no love. They view me as a vessel to get to you, which is a compliment to you. And I guess I acknowledge that I am a stepping stone. And the link to the McCullough Foundation, that video you sent me, is in the description, as well as your Twitter, Getter, website, Substack,
Yeah.
everything. Dr. McCullough, take it away, sir.
Thanks so much for having me. The McCullough Foundation is doing great. People have been so generous all over the world. We're proud to support. We're the major funder of an independent medical journal called the Journal of Science, Public Health Policy and the Law. And the editor is Dr. Jack Lyons-Weiler, a former PhD from University of Pittsburgh. And so the McCullough Foundation has been integral in that. We've hired our first fellow for the year. He's in his second month now, Nick Hulsher, graduate from University of Michigan. Hail to the victors. And Nick is doing great. He's got a great head start at independent publications. He's running the McCullough Foundation social media accounts, which are doing great. You'll see McCullough Foundation out there. Everybody, chip in a little support for what we're doing with McCullough Foundation. Our four parts of our mission are: one, independent investigative scholarship. And, I'm pretty much leading now on anybody on clinical aspects of COVID and the vaccine in the world. Number two is the media, what we do here. We do have media costs like you do. And then the third area is justice. So I am an expert in over 100 cases. I've been in 2 cases that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, 2 that went to the Texas Supreme Court, and lots of other, civil cases all over the country. And then the fourth mission is public policy, Tommy. As you know, I've testified multiple times in the U.S. Senate, now in the House of Representatives, in multiple state senates. I'm on a standing committee in Arizona, and so funding there actually helps support just my travel and just the personal expenses of doing that. But it's so great to be back on your show. I'm so thrilled that you're free of alcohol now. You're living the life, fit and strong, sleeping well. You look well. I mean,
Thank
everybody
you.
just look at Tommy right now. Doesn't he look so much more handsome? He's sitting up straighter. He's got these biceps. I met Tommy in person. I was so impressed with just these massive pipes. He must be able to curl like 250 pounds. Tommy, great to be back on.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, no, it's been a little over 4 months, and I keep telling everyone like it's against every wish I have. I'm like trying to find I'm like, no, it's more fun. I'm a better son. I'm a better brother. I'm a better friend. I'm a better gym goer, nutritionist. I pray better. I sleep better. And
Yeah.
my bank account's better. And at a certain point, I'm like, there's truly no, I can't even, if I wanted to, I couldn't argue to. So it is much better. And so for disease X, for the bird flu, for all these things floating around, there seems to be a general, if 4 years ago you did this, obviously we saw it happen. Now, when you see people, when you see the headlines floating, 1 in 4 Americans dead, people just brush it off. I think there's an article yesterday, and it was egg and milk sales not going down despite warnings about flu. And people in general, I think that's proof that they're just looking at this and saying, no, is that valid? Is it the boy who cried wolf, or is this naive? Could this be bad?
We keep talking about this boy who cried wolf issue. If we're message, remember, we had COVID-19 as a national, that's declared by the President Trump at the time, and then a public health. Those are separate. So the president calls the national, the public health emergency, that's called by the Secretary of HHS. So we've had national public health emergencies for SARS-CoV-2. Okay. But during that time, we've also had one for monkeypox.
Hmm.
And in fact, the WHO called it a worldwide. Now, Tommy, did you personally feel any monkeypox threat in your life?
No, I don't think anyone did.
Did you know of anybody who got monkeypox?
No.
No. So, I mean, it's just, but again, think about this. National and public health emergency for a disease that you Never even had a single ounce of concern for it. Didn't see a single patient with monkeypox. Now, sure enough, there was probably a couple thousand cases of monkeypox. It's a very mild skin rash. It's treated with a drug called tecovirimat. There was no reason to rush out and get vaccines, but the messaging was, and I remember with monkeypox, we had Eric Adams, mayor of New York, was saying, listen, everybody come out and get your monkeypox vaccines. So Jynneos, which is Bavarian Nordic, they're the company that had it. That vaccine was ready to go. Turns out the answer wasn't a vaccine. The answer was get some treatment. We clearly needed safe sex practices. The vast majority was in very, very active gay and bisexual men, typically more than 10 partners a week. And it was just not not our community, right? So we've already had that. Now we're getting big time messaging on highly pathogenic avian influenza bird flu. So have you seen any postings on that, Tommy?
I've not. Well, I mean, aside from the warning saying, yeah, 1 in 4 Americans are going to die, and I think they have almost adrenal fatigue from the pandemic. And then there's the general, it's a common theme whenever you see X hot topic or live wire, it's well, just in time for election year. That's to be the response.
Well, it's true. Well, I'll give you a quick summary of bird flu. Now, how influenza goes is there's an H that stands for hemagglutinates. That's one of the major antigens. That's the spike protein of influenza. And then N, and then neuraminidase. Those are the two major antigens. And so bird flu is H5N1. So H5 is in a sense, more pathogenic spike protein. Over the decades, there have been several hundred human cases of bird flu. And so it's influenza largely among birds, poultry birds. And of those cases, there was a high mortality rate. But the cases that resulted in fatalities, I reviewed them, paper in New England Journal of Medicine, for instance, 2005, largely underdeveloped countries, people presenting very late, no ICU care, no secondary antibiotics, things like this. It looks like, honestly, they die of a secondary bacterial pneumonia. So this general talking point is bird flu is extraordinarily fatal for human beings. And now there's been the drumbeat. 2021 Gavi, the Global Vaccine Alliance, said bird flu will be the next disease X. The WHO has put out major warnings and updates on bird flu. So has the USDA. So has the CDC. And there's been a massive surge in testing, PCR testing for bird flu in animals, poultry, and now cattle, and emergency communications coming out in April of 2024 from our USDA. And this is what it's all about. In 2022, there was a single case of bird flu in Colorado. And Tommy, you know who it was? It was the unlucky poultry farm worker. He was ordered to incinerate all the chickens. One of the chickens had bird flu. And that's, by the way, the government response is kill them all. It's called culling. And the farmers get a government reimbursement if they do this. Mm-hmm. So this poor guy has to, shovel all the chickens into an incinerator. And sure enough, he gets bird flu from doing that. That's how he got it in 2022. If you would have just left the birds alone, they would have gotten natural immunity and chances are they would have been fine. But this extermination of the birds. So he gets it in 2022. Now nothing until 2024. And now a man in West Texas gets a relatively severe case of pink eye. It was just in the New England Journal of Medicine. And they tested him. Why they tested him for bird flu, that's unclear, but he tested positive. And now the emergency is, a man, said to have gotten it from cattle, although honestly, it probably came from some bird source. Sid Miller, the ag director in Texas, says, kill millions of chickens. Cal-Maine out there, the nation's largest egg producer, now, has to sacrifice all these egg-laying hens. So when we looked at this, we said, listen, this looks like, I think Gavi was right. Bird flu is the next disease X. We've been studying this. It turns out the strain that people are getting sick, believe it or not, Tommy, there was a dolphin that got bird flu off of Florida. The strain is a gain of function strain. It's a manipulated strain. Looks like it's coming out of the USDA Poultry Research Lab in Athens, Georgia.
University of Georgia. It's maybe not the
No,
best time to be an alumni.
no, not the University of Georgia, the USDA Poultry Research Center in Athens, Georgia. So
Yeah.
it's a USDA, the USDA. Now, former CDC Director Redfield was out on national TV this week saying, "Oh yeah," he goes, bird flu. It's really hard to get bird flu to infect humans, but if I change 5 amino acids in their spike protein, the hemagglutinates, I can get it to jump into humans and spread to humans. He goes, that's not going to happen in nature, very likely, but it could be done in a lab. And he said, in fact, gain of function research is being done on bird flu in academic labs. So he comes out and says this. This is astounding. Tommy, you'd never guess who is the director of the USDA Poultry Research Center in Athens, Georgia.
I, Anthony Fauci. I don't.
A former Gates Foundation
Oh,
director.
all right.
Yeah,
Really
and so
coincidence.
it's game on. So this has been going on for decades. It's coming to a crescendo. The Chinese started vaccinating the chickens in China about 20 years ago. It's been a disaster because the birds actually can just carry, it's not a sterilizing vaccine, so they can carry the virus around and get more birds sick with the virus. So, and then the French started vaccinating last summer. That was a disaster because, you know, the bird strain to never vaccinate is mallard ducks because ducks fly everywhere. You know, chickens can't fly in a migratory pattern, but ducks can. So the French did that. It was a total mistake. United States, we actually banned ducks, the poultry ducks. It may have gotten into the natural mallard strain. USDA Poultry Research Center is doing research on mallard ducks. So all you need is one of these ducks to get out, and there is a history of lab animals escaping, and then it's game on for bird flu to spread all over the country. Chances are a mallard duck swam, landed on a pond in Texas, you know, mingled with other chickens or livestock, and there we go.
So looking at everything we know now in hindsight from, from the pandemic, what can we realistically expect then? Is this because monkeypox, if just in a vacuum, if you looked at it, you'd say, oh, here we go again, but it fizzled and nothing happened. So now there's this weird fork in the road where it's like, can we just brush this stuff off now? Or is it going to come down with the hammer? What do you think it's actually going to happen?
I think this is what I predict. This is perfectly timed, just a few weeks before the WHO meeting. Okay, and so I think it's staged for just fearful messaging this spring. But the real utility later on, Tommy, is going to be a constraint on the food supply. I think you're going to see orders go in for mass culling, not only of poultry, but of probably extended cattle. It's not needed. They can just be observed. And there are many veterinarians that believe they don't need all need to be killed. Incredible scare on the food supply. When they do PCR testing, just like PCR testing with COVID, they pick up all kinds of strands of DNA. Sure, you could pick up a stray viral particle on some chicken in the store. Doesn't mean that virus is alive. And now there's fear of people going in grocery stores. Food prices go up. People give up poultry altogether. We could actually have an incredible, an incredibly fear-driven panic session. In a sense, a mass run on things. Humans, there may be some jump into direct poultry workers and people working with cattle. General public like us, I don't think we have a threat right now unless it moves into, direct human to human spread. But what we're seeing is extraordinary, and I want to give you some citations from our Substack so people understand what's going on. The USDA has been collaborating with the Chinese Academy of Sciences to mutate H5N1 bird flu via serial passage. What they keep doing is they keep trying to get the virus to jump from a chicken into a mallard duck or Chinese geese or Japanese quail. Now, these animals are going to, migrate. They've been doing this since April of 2021. The USDA has two projects. I'll give you the number to them: 439 and 621, 440252, titled Exotic and Emerging Avian Viral Diseases Research, USDA team led by Daryl Kapsiski. And they're simply describing what they're doing. They're trying to get this virus to get ramped up and start jumping among these strains. It is absolutely foolhardy and reckless to do this. You know, the mallard duck is the most wide-ranging duck on Earth. It can crossbreed with 63 other species. They're also well-known asymptomatic carriers of bird flu. So the mallard ducks don't get sick, and they pass the virus on to other animals. It's the ideal species for transporting an infectious disease pathogen as far and as wide as possible. And in this Substack I'm quoting on Courageous Discourse Substack, they are showing the year-round migratory patterns from the US and Europe of the mallard duck. And believe it or not, the breeding migratory pattern of the mallard duck from all of North America to all of Asia and Russia. That's the breeding. It is astounding how far these ducks spread. And so this gain-of-function strain, I want this to get on the record here, that's been identified. It's a gain-of-function strain. The name of the strain, or the clade, is 2.3.4.4b. It's in wild birds leading in the US, leading to the current outbreaks. These wild birds transported along. It's gone transatlantic. Other co-conspirators include Dr. Ron Fauchier in Europe. He's been named, and this research facility in Athens, Georgia. It's called the Southeast Poultry Research Facility, Athens, Georgia. Is probably the source of an escaped strain. Jeremy Farrar, the chief scientist now at the WHO, formerly at the Wellcome Trust, on April 18th, 2024, Tommy indicated that in fact, you know, the WHO is putting worldwide global emergency status on bird flu. And Rick Bright, formerly in the White House, he's one of the members of the biopharmaceutical complex. He is also sounding the alarm all over Twitter. Moderna just won an award for a $483 million BARDA grant from our military for bird flu. And I can tell you another company, CSL, has a antigen-based vaccine that they grow in cell cultures right now, approved in 2021 for bird flu, and is ready to go. It's already been pre-purchased by the government, and right behind it, CSL has a self-replicating messenger RNA bird flu vaccine. CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, that's Gates Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation with the Koreans, they have a self-replicating messenger RNA vaccine nearly ready to go for bird flu. We're talking about vaccinating humans now.
So in terms of like 100,000-foot view, is this a jump? Is this a financial gain? Is this, you know, attack the poultry because Bill Gates has all the, you know, the lab grown poultry? And is it that? Because that, I mean, obviously there's the precedent from that, from the dawn of time till now, is money. Is there a larger, is this just the opening shots of World War III? Is this the top down clamp down on all of humanity to just remove, I mean, you know, from whether it's the abolition of the nuclear family to borders to value of currency to value of religion, and even, you know, formerly thought to be unchanging norms like gender? Is this just the continual, almost biblical dissolving of the world we know? Or am I not that you have the answer, but am I getting ahead of myself? Is this more of a money grab?
I think, I mean, you're painting kind of a larger
Yeah.
picture of what's happening. I think bird flu is a step along the way. Bird flu, for sure, is perfectly timed to be a driver of fear in the public and in officials meeting in Geneva, like, this week and next, to say, listen, the WHO, this is a worldwide problem. It's in the animals migrating all over. Only the WHO could handle a
Mhm.
worldwide pandemic threat. This is the reason why the WHO would say we need this pandemic treaty alliance signed in international health regulations, because bird flu is on the move right now. Okay. It will put a fear-based constraint on the food supply if culling is the major intervention. If the intervention is if they mass test ducks and cattle, which the USDA is saying effectively in the last few days that we should be doing this, you're going to come up with PCR positive cases. And when they do, they're going to destroy large numbers of chickens, and hens, maybe cattle. That will invariably, the farmers will be okay because they're going to get reimbursed from the government, but that's going to create a shortage, a food shortage. So I think this will provide fear as the impetus for the WHO Pandemic Treaty Alliance and the international health regulations. I think it'll put a constraint on the food supply and make people fearful right before the US elections.
Mm.
And then it's going to be very interesting to see how this sorts out. Will the Democrats be able to say, listen, we're the better stewards of pandemic control, we're the better stewards of this, vote for us? Or will the Republican Party say, listen, we've had enough of this, we're going to get some experts in here and get this under control, and not let this spin out of control as a pandemic threat? The reality is the biggest threat's going to be to animals who are unnecessarily destroyed. I think there's a minimal threat to humans. I mean, what should humans do? I think, farm workers ought to have an iodine-based, very dilute nasal spray and gargle, probably do it twice a day. I think that'd be very wise, handling animals. I know that's what I would do. And then everybody should have, some form of an antiviral at the ready. There's 4 antivirals approved for influenza. If patients do get influenza and they're elderly, I usually follow on with secondary antibiotics to cover staphylococcal illnesses. We can treat influenza. So I don't think it's going to get too far. I can imagine, listen, CSL has a vaccine already pre-purchased and ready to go. You're going to hear about bird flu vaccines for the public very shortly.
It kind of, I mean, it does look like more like almost selection pressures for war, though, right? I mean, you can trot out the enemy so long, but you have Russia, Ukraine, you have Israel, Palestine, you have China, Taiwan. It seems like it's being pushed more and more to you can't not fight. It seems like that the the elite, the financial elite, the military elite, they seem to want a war. Now, whether they want it to be kinetic or a cold war, I think it's the latter. But these all just seem like selection pressures to there's
Mm-hmm.
no waving the white flag going, I don't want a part of this. It's no choose a side. I mean, you have the EU who under the Trump administration was laughing at the idea of having to pay their fair share in NATO versus you see them doing it now. It's a different route. Instead of Trump saying it, it's defend Ukraine, but the effect is the same. How do you pull the Middle East into it? Didn't we just get out of the Middle East? Well, no, now we got to give money to Israel and send carrier groups there. What about China, Taiwan, semiconductors? It's all just it just seems like now is it controlled or is this just an emergent phenomena? I have no idea. But it seems like these are all just little pieces that are pushing it towards there's no it's like tectonic plates pushing against one another. It's like there's going to be a tsunami or an earthquake or a new mountain range, but it's not going to be a tranquil field. It just seems like that's what's happening. I don't know if it's orchestrated or again, if this is just the unpredictable emergent phenomena of 8 billion sentient humans walking around with opposable thumbs and free will. I have no idea.
Well, I think the theme is, and I think you characterized it, Tommy, it's instability. It's just instability. Things are unstable. People are fearful. They are uncertain. And we know what fear does. Fear does, people start to get into a group think. They tend to be very suggestible. They tend to grab solutions presented by those in position of authority. They're very susceptible to propaganda when people are fearful. It seems like, that would be a common theme to me. One thing to look at carefully, though, is the reality of all of these conflicts. and the lack of embedded reporting.
What do you
You
mean?
know, can a war just be something that people say that they're at war with no war really going, or just showing us what we call clickbait. Clickbait is taking a picture. Um, if I took a picture of a building that burned down, down the street, I could say, "Wow, somebody just bombed us," and I
Yeah.
could post it, and I wouldn't have any substantiation of a bomb or not, or what the source of the fire was. We're not having any reporting so people on the ground reporting from Ukraine, and I can tell you one thing: we're not showing any battles of any planes in the air. We're not showing any tank battles. There's no mass humanitarian crisis from Ukraine. We're not shown that. We're not shown massive prisoner exchanges. Um, so one would have to ask for Ukraine. Is a war really happening? What is going on? Is money really being sent over there? We're told it is, but when large amounts of money are sent over, I mean, in the billions of dollars, it's hard not to have that show up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if we send money to Israel, boy, do they buy F-16s, and do they have all these things? These guys have flak jackets, and they're a military superpower.
Mm.
Nobody's going to mess with Israel. They're a military superpower. So it's like, okay, I can see our U.S. dollars being spent over there. I can't see. I mean, is Ukraine a military superpower? Given I haven't been seeing any evidence of that. You know what I mean? So we're not seeing where the money is. If people say, well, they're money laundering it, I said, well, again, that's going to turn out. The money is too much.
Yeah.
So if Zelensky, if he bought a whole island in the Mediterranean and he's out of there, it's like, okay, he just stole the money and went. If they're building Disneyland in Kiev, I'd say, okay, well, that's where the money's going. So Ukraine to me, is enigmatic. Israel's easier to understand. It's a military superpower going against people who are running as fast as they can. I haven't seen a single image of return fire. I haven't seen an image of a Palestinian with any type of gun or weapon in their hand. You can't
Yeah.
find it right now on Instagram. Palestinians have no planes, they have no tanks. They literally are running as fast as they can, as all the homes, literally all the homes and buildings and businesses and schools, banks, and are just being destroyed in Gaza. Gaza is just a scorched earth bombing. Someone messaged me on LinkedIn, well, what do you think about this? I said, well, if they're looking for prisoners, they've got a lot of rubble to sift through at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't be, miles up in the air in a bomber and just dropping bombs down. There's no anti-aircraft fire. There's nothing. It's the easiest bombing runs in the world. Oh, let's just run over here. Oh, there's a building that's still standing. Let's drop a bomb on it. And so, so that one's, I think, a little easier to understand. Taiwan, China, that one's going to be tough because, a large number of people who live in Taiwan, they have families in mainland China, and they have slowly normalized travel. So I used to go to Taiwan a lot, and when I went there years ago, you could not go to Beijing, or Shanghai. You couldn't from Taipei. You couldn't do it. You have to fly through Macau or Hong Kong. Then over time, they, so okay, on weekends you could go. And then over time, so they've steadily more normalized things. And as things have become more normalized, you do wonder what the next step is. The Chinese Communist Party and people in the mainland China do want Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
They do. There's no doubt about it. It's like people in Russia, they do want Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to enough to understand that, listen, the country is for it. But the question is, how are they going to do it? If you were to ask me, I'd have to go there and see it firsthand. But if I was to guess, I would guess there's really no war in Ukraine. I think it's probably an annexation of Ukraine by Russia, where there could be some disputes here and there. But Russian government agents and military people are probably just, converting over the banking system, the healthcare system, getting people on Russian Social Security, stuff like that. Taiwan's going to be more interesting. I just don't think the Chinese are up for a military confrontation. When I landed in Terminal 3, which is now their big terminal in Beijing, it's the largest building under glass in the world, Tommy. And I walked through Terminal 3. I told myself, the Chinese are not going to attack anybody
Hmm.
because the first thing we'll do is drop a bomb on
And
that glass structure. There'll be more glass on the ground than you could ever imagine. I just don't think it. I just don't think the Chinese are up for a kinetic battle. The kinetic battles, most of them, Tommy, are not. They're not very. They're not very much of a manly
it's
fight.
not World War II. It's not
No,
tank
it's
battles.
just not a fight. I mean, when we went into Iraq, what we're told after the first few waves. I mean, there was nothing left. I did a stage program one time with one of the Navy SEALs. He said quoting, shooting Iraqis was like shooting ducks in a barrel. That's how
Hmm.
easy it was. And for the Israelis, they're a military superpower. They're not having any problem. There's no resistance. I mean, it's an invasion, and sadly, I think we're up to about 20,000 Palestinian children crushed in the rubble, and the Palestinians are now they're running as far and
Hmm.
fast as they can. They just have nowhere to go. So
Yeah, it's a giant weed whacker. It's Russia seems to have no problem just completely grinding Ukraine to dust, and I'm with you. It's you could say that the reason we're not seeing anything out of Ukraine is because the side that we're supporting isn't winning, so therefore we're not going to show anything. But I'm with you. It's where are the battles? Where are what's happening? Israel, it's a little more apparent. You're like, I can see the tax dollars hitting the city, right? And I'm gonna text you an article right now. I don't need it for this show, but about Lavender, an AI program that the U.S. sold to Israel that they're using to find out who to bomb and where to bomb. There's different parameters. I mean, some of the software is called Where's Daddy, and you wait until the father's home at night, and then you bomb it and you kill the kids in the family. You have different markers. If you're a courier, you're allotted one civilian death per your death, all the way up to unlimited. If you're a top general, it's 500, and it's madness. And you have whistleblowers from Unit 8200. So then I always clarify this. These aren't hippies. Unit 8200 is Israel's NSA. You have their NSA whistleblowing going, this is madness. A computer spits out the sheet and they just check to make sure that the target's male. No one looks at anything. They're getting it from a crystal ball. Well, they're getting it from parent companies, Palantir, right? So there is kind of some like, occult symbolism in there. Taiwan is interesting because unlike Ukraine, where Russia kind of has no problem, unlike Palestine, where Israel seems to have no problem, if not any problem, but they seem to like it. Taiwan's different because there's semiconductor fabrication facilities. There's something, right? Ukraine, it's a leg, chop it off. Palestine, it's an arm, chop it off. This is like a cancerous spot in the brain stem. It's like no one wants to just go shoot it with a shotgun. They're like,
well, I mean, hang on here. I do agree with you on Taiwan. Remember, one of the things the Chinese and mainland Chinese really covet are all the relics in the Palace
yeah,
Museum in Taipei. So Chiang Kai-shek, when he pulled out of there, he got everything of value out of the country. And it's sitting in this museum that's carved into a mountain in Taipei. It's incredible. Anybody go to Taipei, always check out the Palace Museum. You're right, they got the full semiconductor industry. If you've ever been to Taipei, they got like a miraculous subway system, beautiful buildings. I don't know if you saw Taipei 101. It's a
Nepo, it
huge
was the
building.
tallest building in the world before the Burj Khalifa. Yeah,
Right, but they just had a massive earthquake, and at Taipei 101, they've got a counterweight at the
yeah,
top, and it
yeah,
worked beautifully. It worked beautifully.
yeah,
It's interesting. I think with Ukraine, I think it's an annexation.
yeah.
Kiev has not been leveled. The subways are running on time. The highways are okay. And I think the Russians are taking their time because they're simply taking it over. They're in a sense taking it back. Remember, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. They are taking it back in peace. They're just literally taking it back intact. And there may be some skirmishes here or there. If U.S. money is going, and I'm not sure there's actually any signs it's really going. If U.S. money is going, it's got to be the biggest savings account established anywhere where the money is just sitting there. But normally you'd see signs of it. For Israel, in my view, what happened on October 7th, whatever happened was awful. There needs to be an investigation to see who did it. Okay, we knew who did it. We're told about 1,200 Israelis died, but also in the same reports, about 1,300, Palestinians or non-Israelis. Some perpetrators died. So a lot of the bad guys probably just died right there as the IDF came in Black Hawk helicopters, and that was it. The question is, what should be the response? Now, a response that would be measured would say, listen, we're going to do a counterterrorism effort here. We're going to go in and get the prisoners, get remaining perpetrators, and we're going to go in essentially against a defenseless population and do that. And they could honestly operate at will in Gaza. But instead they said, no, we're going to wait. We're going to turn off the power, electricity, and gas. We're going to wait for 7 days. And then it's a full-scale military invasion that's now been changed to about 6 months of just daily bombing, leveling every single thing they have there. So now you really have a mass humanitarian crisis. You got people with nowhere to live. All the schools are shut down in Gaza. Universities are shut down. They're destroyed. Everything they have is destroyed. And now these people are relegated to trying to sleep in a cot somewhere out in the desert. And we're told that Gaza has had recently discovered proven oil and gas reserves. Netanyahu saying pretty clearly they're going to make this part of Israel, that they're going to build settlements there. So I think this is a military takeover of Gaza. And the question on the table is what's going to happen to 1.5 million Palestinians. And there's been about 40,000 who've died, but you still have a lot of people are alive. And what's going to become of the Palestinians?
I think Israel is going. I think they're going to kill them all. And
Oh boy.
it's a genocide. It's nothing short of. And I'm guilty of when it first happened. I was like, hey man, you can't go attack a country and then be surprised at the outcome. It's 7 months later, and I mean I'm slowly changing my position where I'm like, hey man, there's only so many ways you can twist something, and there's only so many pictures of like dust covered children's hands that
Yeah.
you could look at before you go, hey man, I can't. What are we doing? What is this? What? Who's really benefit? Oh, surprise! There's also oil and gas fields there, huh? It's not. You guys aren't just taking over a mound of rock. Oh, what's there? What's in Afghanistan? What's in Iraq? Is it a bunch of, I don't know, sunflowers? It's oil and lithium, huh? Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting. It's same thing, and it's. I mean, I don't, I would imagine at some point you're gonna have some sort of attack from Taiwan on China, and it's gonna be like, well, we got to go in and get it, and it's what I mean, it is nothing short of a genocide, and it's also, but then there's also, the pot calling the kettle black. So I would say there's 40,000 dead in Gaza. It's been roughly 6 months, so multiply that by two, that would be 80,000 for a year. For a decade, that would be 800,000. For 2 decades, that would be 1.6 million. We killed 1.5 million civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years. As bad as this is, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm just as a point of humility, this is on par to be no different from the war on terror. But I don't criticize that. So it's just it's my own, I guess, I don't know, hypocrisy.
I guess, I mean, you can see why there's
Yeah.
worldwide protests. People are upset. I said, well, I've talked to many kind of my conservative friends say, well, I'm really upset about what's happening on college campuses. And I said, well, that's no different than what's happening in the entire world. So just take a look at the world and figure out why the world's upset. I mean, Instagram is just full of these images of, crushed babies and blood and amputations and painful misery. I haven't seen a single picture of a Palestinian with a gun. They're defenseless against the Israelis. Israelis are all full camos and flak jackets, and you can imagine, they're so loaded with weapons that Palestinians, there's nothing they can do. If they could flee, if Egypt said, okay, come into Egypt.
No countries are letting them in.
And no one's letting them in. So this is kind of, now we are not seeing scenes like that from Kiev. We are not. We're not seeing. So it just, I think Russia is a relatively peaceful annexation. I think Israel is Yeah, I'm not sure it's a genocide. I just think it's a very uh, it's a revengeful, uh, you know, it's harm. It's one group that is clearly harming
Mm.
another group. The Palestinians, they'll survive. Some Palestinians survive, but you can't. You can't help think. Are these little kids? Are they going to have happy feelings about the Israeli government later on?
Well, and
Are they
that's
going to
the
be
other
all?
thing is, where do you think this goes?
Yeah,
You don't think those kids with one arm and no parents are gonna go, well, I'm gonna go be an engineer? Or do you think they're gonna, rightfully so, probably put on a headband, get an AK, and going, I'm gonna get mine before I die?
yeah.
Why
Well,
wouldn't you?
yeah. I just think that you're right. They're going to be so angry, and Palestinians are just interesting people. They've survived kind of three separate occupations from Israelis or Israelites. They've
68,
survived the
67,
Romans.
73.
Yeah, they survived the Romans, and they survived the Turks. That was the hardest one. That was 800 years. And right now they are surviving, in a sense, about 80 years of the current Israelis. But they do have a long run view. They're culturally just very old, and they're just not warriors. They don't have guns. They don't have tanks. And if Hamas is the elected political party of Gaza. So Hamas is like the Republican or Democratic Party. So if the elected party really did this and they decided, listen, let's go for it and let's go ahead and take out some Israelis on October 7th. They were holding a rave against the wall of Gaza, which was a very dumb thing to do if indeed that was, what was going on. It had to be the worst political military move in history
Hmm.
to attack a fully nuclear weaponized military superpower if the Palestinians did that. It would be the dumbest move in history. So I think the question on the table is who really did what? And we haven't seen any investigation of this. We just haven't seen any analysis and report how many bad guys. And this idea of prisoners, is this the way to obtain your prisoners? Is just bomb building after building after building? Wouldn't they think the prisoners could be in one of those buildings,
I think
right?
I think you and I are looking at this as rational human beings. I think if you're a psychopath who has elevated to the height of a military intelligence apparatus, you would go, yeah, I don't know, if we kill all of them, that's going to create insurgents, and insurgents are no different than biopharmaceutical. You got to create lifelong patients. This is how you do it. Now, you and I look at that, and that's appalling. But those are the people that run the world throughout all of human history. I mean, a disproportionate percentage of psychopaths. Not stupid, but psychopaths. That's how they would look at it.
Yeah, and war, like President Eisenhower said, war is this military complex. I mean, these contractors, all these generals, all
Yes.
these guys, the money is flowing, the power is I'm sure just pulsing through their veins. Now, Tommy, what do you think about when Israel attacks the embassy in Syria? So they attack the Iranian embassy, I believe, in Syria, and then Iran launches this counterstrike. What do you think about that?
I think Israel is wanting to pull the United States in. And if things get too big, and if the conflagration, if that's the right word, gets too powerful, we're gonna go in. I think that's what they want. I think they want us to come in, and I mean, again, tactically, why wouldn't you? If your big brother's the United States, spends $1 trillion a year on defense, why wouldn't you do that? I think that's what they're trying to do. Is because right now it's like I don't know, it's like your little brother's in a fight with someone, and you're like, well, you know what, man, that's you. If I'm the little brother, I'm gonna start throwing things around my big brothers so people get hit, and then all of a sudden they turn and start swinging on my brothers. And now they might look at me and they'd be like, "You idiot," but they're nonetheless still gonna come in because they have interests. Now, if all of if the majority of the world's fossil fuels that we're accessing are there, that's exactly what you would do. You're trying to pull people in with you. You're going down, you're grabbing the curtains and the light fixtures. You're trying to make as big as a bang as possible. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think Iran I think they postured on the way they fired all those missiles. I would imagine that they probably, it's like right when Trump was in office, and I think was it Syria where he launched like 100 cruise missiles or something, and we hit a bunch of runways. I would imagine that there's probably back channel communications between generals that are going, we're not going to not do this, right? But this isn't war. I think it's and that for you and I, that's hard to imagine, but I think that's probably what happens. It's like, hey, we're not going to just sit here and let you do this, but we're also not going to nuke you. We're going to take out some runways. You're going to lose some people, and then blah blah blah. That's probably how it happens. I think Iran did that for this is just me as a biology major with no military experience. I would imagine Iran did that to not be seen as weak to their sworn religious enemy, the Jews. And so they fired all that. The United States and Jordan helped shoot down some of those drones, and I think the majority of them. I don't necessarily think we are doing that to defend Israel. I think we are trying to make another October 7 not happen.
Mm.
You throw something at your brother and your dad grabs it and grabs the ball in midair and goes, stop it. He's not defending your brother. He's going to kill you if you hit him with this. I think that's probably what's happening. I don't mean to paint the United States as like the innocent big brother. We have demons of our own. I think that's probably what it was. And it's very we sent 3 aircraft carrier strike groups there. I don't think it was just to shield Israel. I think it was also don't let anything happen. It was
Mhm.
you're the sober friend and you're holding 2 drunk friends apart. You're not really protecting either of them, but you're kind of protecting both of them. You're like, you guys are going to kill each other and it's going to pull me into it. I think that's probably what's happening.
Hmm.
It's, you know,
That's an interesting analysis. Without any embedded reporting, that's the big.
well, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We have no embedded. Why don't we have correspondents in Tel Aviv or correspondents in Nazareth or other places even to the north? We can't know, but this would be my speculation. I think I agree with you. I think it was largely choreography. And uh, Jewish people, in my interpretation, are not quote sworn enemies of the Muslims. The religious Jews who are the minority in Israel, they're about 20%. There are practicing Jews in Israel, about 20%. They're actually pacifists. They don't want war. These are the people, with the kippahs, and they're very
Hmm.
devout people. 80% are atheists. 80% of the Israelis are non-practicing Jews. They claim an origin there, but they don't practice the religion. So it's not a religious thing. The Shia and the Sunni have a philosophical and religious fight over the role of Ali, which is one of the prophets. But that's a different thing. What the Muslims largely want, when I talk to them, and I've traveled to the Middle East, is they want to be left alone. They really do.
Hmm.
They haven't. The Muslims have not taken over other people's territories, or whatever. They largely want to be left alone. And
Hmm.
so people who are it's like a bee's nest. You keep poking a bee's nest, they're going to be stirred up. And then when I ask them that, so well, why do you hate the West? They don't hate the West because we're Christians or Jews. They hate us because
Leave
we're
us
we're,
alone.
we're, we keep stepping on them with our army boots. Um, so what my interpretation of this was Israel hits the Iranian embassy in Syria, and then in kind of a choreographed um, strike, they send these drones, which it's like little toy airplanes. They have no hope of doing anything. So they get picked off right away in the Iron Dome and anti-aircraft fire. So then that happens. And then the real interesting thing is this final Israel counterstrike. So Israel says, well, we will attack Iran back. No, wait a minute. Israel is said to have 93 nuclear warheads. They clearly have bombers because they're bombing the crud out of Gaza. So if Israel wants to go and really try to bomb Iran, it's like, you got Tehran. Iran's a country of 80 million people. Tehran's a city as big as Chicago. They could clearly do it. But what do? They clear airspace and they send ballistic missiles, and they're said to go to some nuclear facility in the middle of Iran. And they're an independent reporter. He's on Instagram. I don't know if you know him, Matt Kim. Do you know who Matt Kim is?
No.
So Matt actually had a friend over in this city, or somebody he knew over there. He said, "Hey, get on your cell phone and let's show us some video of the Israeli bombs hitting this city where the nuclear facilities are. And he had nothing. There was nothing. In fact, the Israeli missiles looked like they were targeted for some uninhabited islands off of Iran. So this whole thing, Tommy, and if you notice in the press, there was no follow-up on this. The press didn't say, oh, there's a nuclear fallout from released plutonium or something from Iran. Nothing. There was no reporting on this. I think this was all choreography. Something did happen, but none of it. I mean, Iran has fighter jets. If
Yeah.
they actually want to go do something, bring on the jets. They didn't do it. They sent kind of the toy airplanes and drones. Israel has real fighter jets. Israel has nuclear bombs. They could do a limited nuclear strike. They didn't do it. So I think this is all, semi-Cold War tactics between Iran and Israel. In the meantime, Israel has no problem just slaughtering a defenseless population. So going against
They've
the
shown that.
Palestinians in
Yeah.
Gaza, that's an easy fight. Israel doesn't want a real fight with Iran, and they showed no inclinations of having a real kind of mano-a-mano fight, and Iran doesn't want it either. So it's very interesting. Israel's been careful not to have the Iman. I don't know what they would do against a fully outfitted, armored, trained Palestinian military. I don't know, but I would imagine their approach would be different.
Hmm. It does kind of all seem like a canard or like smoke and mirrors. There
Mm.
doesn't seem to be anything going on. I mean, obviously there is, but it's like, where is all the money going? 60 billion to Ukraine for what? What is realistically happening? There seems
Okay.
to be there seems to be nothing. And I guess to try to find like an optimistic light in things, I look at this as it seems to be a power elite that is struggling to stay in power. And they're doing these things that are clearly ineffective. People are just looking at from monkeypox to Ukraine. People are like, "What's happening?" This doesn't seem to be the actions of a confident, omnipotent force. These seem to be
Yeah,
the actions of
it
an
seems like
insecure force.
yeah, it seems like some type of kind of bizarre tribalism. Tell me, have you noticed on Twitter how many people at the outset of this Russian-Ukraine war they changed their emojis to Ukrainian flags?
Yeah,
Like what's that about? People don't even know where Ukraine is. When I went to the UK Parliament last year, they had replaced all the Union Jacks above Parliament with Ukraine flags. Did you see this vote in the Congress, the most recent
and
one?
they all
They were waving Ukrainian flags. Like, what type of tribalism is that? Not now. Have you seen all the college campus and worldwide protests? The Palestinian flag. So
yeah.
it and I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even know what Palestine is, or the history of Palestine. So there's something going on in humans right now where they're gravitating towards tribalism. They want to associate with something. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Tommy, we're coming up towards the end. I know this is usually about COVID, but we had an
Yeah, yeah.
interesting discussion about conflicts in Russia, as well as in the Middle East, and potentially in the future in China. But we've got some fires burning at home, including bird flu on the rise. I think everybody should keep a watch for bird flu messaging, watch for reported cases in animals, and then really watch for a jump to humans. Remember, dilute iodine nasal sprays and gargles, first order defense antivirals. Wellness Company has got a contagion kit you can get. We expanded to cover bird flu. And follow on Courageous Discourse Substack. We're trying to give you objective information as this comes out. The one thing that's clear, based on our scholarship and what former CDC Director Redfield just said, if we have a bird flu outbreak, it did not come from nature. It's
Hmm.
coming from gain of function laboratory research.
Yeah, the wellness company sponsoring this show. The link is in the description. But I want to say, just as a final point, Terrence McKenna talked about, he died in 2000, but he talked about something called the archaic revival. And it's when, just like if you're a human and your world seems to be disarray, you reach back into your own past and you try to find a point in which things made sense. For me personally, it was college, not drinking, working hard every day. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 months. I reached back a
Yeah,
decade and pulled it forward. He talks about how, 2,000 years after Rome and Greece is United States kind of pulled out these ideas of democracy. It seems like in this kind of weird time from 2020 till now, it's an archaic revival of tribalism. No one knows what
that's
to
it.
do or make sense with the new world. And it's like, what about teams with flags? And it's like that makes sense. And it doesn't even
Yeah,
necessarily mean it's the right answer, but it seems like that's what's happening. It's a societal, almost a species level
yeah,
reflex of
yeah.
tribalism. Like I don't
It's
know.
it's a revival of tribalism. People feel as if they need to associate with something. They might not even understand the conflict at hand, or ever they may
No.
not even have a personal stake in it.
Yeah.
They don't even know where the conflict is occurring. They just know they need to be on one side or the other. Tom,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going to
Let's wrap
leave
it
it
up.
there. Maybe for the title, make it something about uh, uh, you know bird flu. We know it's gain of function research.
All
We
right.
know now, or gain of function bird flu coming to you soon. But the point is, we know it's gain of function. We got to call it out now.
Okay.
And I gave you all the citations on this. This is really solid. This is not a jump. This is not just something that came out of nature.
It's not
And people are
natural.
going to have to say, listen, when are we going to shut down this really irresponsible, reckless research? It's just creating more and more havoc.
I will change that. Dr. McCullough,
Okay.
thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you as always. It's
Thank
a
you,
pleasure to
Tommy.
talk to you guys. Thank you for watching. Take care, everybody. Where's that mouse?